All right, what is going on, everybody? How is everybody doing today? Welcome back here today to my two-part series, just ranking every single team in the NFL conferences for the 2025 season. If you guys missed it in the last episode, I did the NFC tier list. Today, we're obviously doing the AFC tier list. Okay, so we have 6 different tiers here for the AFC. Super Bowl favorites. I think you can obviously just become the 1 seed in the AFC throughout the regular season and win the AFC championship game. Then the next tier, can you upset the Kansas City Chiefs? Do I think you have a realistic chance at actually beating the Chiefs? Or do I think you're going to just go to the AFC title game and lose to the Chiefs? Playoff teams that I think, yeah, you're going to make the playoffs, maybe to win, maybe not, but you can at least get there. Potential wild cards. So I can at least say with confidence that, you know what, you could be a wild card team, or you're at least going to be in the hunt graphic during like week 15 or 16. And then missing playoff teams can confidently say you're not going to make the playoffs, but you could be at least somewhat competitive and then number 1 pick contention. So we're going to start off with the Miami Dolphins, a team that I thought was going to trade away Tyreek Hill this offseason. They didn't do that. They're going to get Tua Tagovailoa back healthy. They drafted Quinn Ewers. They have Zach Wilson. Thought they could have invested a little bit more into the backup quarterbacks, just given what's happened with Tua over the last few years. They made a late trade in this offseason with the Pittsburgh Steelers, sending out Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith, basically getting Minka Fitzpatrick to come back. They also just recently picked up Darren Waller. They have Jalen Waddle, obviously Devon Achane, Jalen Wright, Alexander Madison, Ali Gordon. It's a fun backfield. They brought in Nick Westbrook-Akini, which I loved. I think there's still some question marks with this offensive line. We'll see if Patrick Paul can develop this year and improve. James Daniels, I thought was a great pickup from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they beefed up that defensive line, getting Kenneth Grant in the first round. I don't love this secondary really whatsoever. And I loved what they did with Chop Robinson last year, but I do think this defense is still top heavy, relying a lot on Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips to make big time plays. I don't think the Dolphins make the playoffs this year. I think they can be a fun offense at times. Can you trust Tua to play over 14, 15 games? I don't know if the track record has shown that we can really trust him to do so. Mike McDaniel could be coaching for his job this year, and I just think the AFC is probably more top heavy than the NFC, and I don't think the Dolphins are going to win the division. I could be nice to them and throw them in potential wild cards, so we'll see. I think they're going to be the first missing playoff team, but there's a chance that I end up bumping them up later on throughout this. So next up, we have the Baltimore Ravens, a team that lost to the Buffalo Bills in the divisional round last year. They steamrolled the Pittsburgh Steelers in the wild card round. They added Jair Alexander this offseason. They didn't really add more depth to the receiving core. They did sign DeAndre Hopkins. We'll see how he looks like. They're kind of also like the tight ends. They just get all these wash receivers at times, but I love them getting Malachi Starks in the first round. Malachi Starks and Kyle Hamilton. Are we kidding? And then they also have Nate Wiggins, TJ Tampa, Marlon Humphrey, Jair Alexander, Chidobe Awuzie. This is the best secondary in the NFL, in my opinion. They have a solid front seven. Kyle Van Noy is still kicking. You got Roquan Smith, Odafe Owe, and oh yeah, maybe the best quarterback in the NFL right now in Lamar Jackson. Based off the regular season, yeah, he's been better than Patrick Mahomes over the last few years, and a lot of people thought he should have won MVP this past season. You also have one of, if not the best running back in the NFL in Derrick Henry. It's just, can you upset the Chiefs? They can easily get to the AFC Championship game. If you had told me they were playing in the second to last game of the NFL season, I would believe you, and I think they could beat anybody outside Kansas City unless I see it. They came very close in the 2023 season when they lost to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. This is a very good roster. They have 2 solid tight ends, and if Mark Andrews held onto the ball last year, maybe they end up beating the Buffalo Bills and could beat the Chiefs. They have a solid O-line. There's still some question marks on the right side, but this team is just so good, man. And they have a solid head coach, and you can go as far as your quarterback can take you. And they obviously have one of the best quarterbacks in the game. So next up, the Cincinnati Bengals. Oh man, this has been a circus of an offseason for the Bengals. Now they signed Chase, they signed Higgins. You have one of the best quarterbacks in the game in Joe Burrow. He was maybe the best statistical quarterback last year. Didn't have a lot of team success though. They have a solid running back in Chase Brown. You have a fine tight end in Mike Gesicki. You have an abysmal offensive line. I do not trust this offensive line whatsoever. Amarius Mims was pretty bad as a rookie. I think you're asking a lot out of him in year number 2. The defense has some solid players, but what's going on with Trey Hendrickson? I'm going to assume he's going to play in some way, shape, or form for the Bengals next year. They finally got the Shamar Stewart contract done. The secondary isn't great. The linebacking core isn't great. Now, they have an amazing offense in terms of skill position players, mainly 3 guys. I think they're pretty much a potential wildcard team. I wouldn't be totally shocked if they missed the playoffs, if they ended up going 7-10 next year, given if there was a 3 to 4 week injury to Joe Burrow, or maybe the offensive line is as bad as it is on paper, or maybe the defense is just going to be pretty bad, because it is also not great on paper. I can't confidently say the Bengals are going to be a playoff team this year. Can they be? 100%. They have a top 5 quarterback in the league. They have a top 2 receiver in the league. They have one of the best wide receiver 2s in T. Higgins, and a very good running back in Chase Brown, who really improved in pass protection last year. But there's just so many question marks on this team. They got the Joe Burrow year. They got the Jamar Chase year last year, and they still did not make the playoffs. But given that almost half the conference makes the playoffs now, they could definitely get in towards the end of the year. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs, I have to have them as Super Bowl favorites every year. Why did we let Josh Simmons fall to them in the NFL draft? He's looked great in training camp so far. There's probably going to be a few game suspension to Rashee Rice, but last year they made it to the Super Bowl without Rashee Rice. You have Travis Kelce, who was kind of better as a run blocker last year. Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown should be healthy at least to start off the year. They drafted Jalen Royals. You still have Juju Smith-Schuster. Isaiah Pacheco should be healthier this year. Jawan Taylor can't be much worse. We'll see how Mike Caliendo can do in the absence of Joe Thuney since they traded him to the Chicago Bears. I like this defense. Trent McDuffie, I don't think has missed a single game yet. George Karlaftis got an extension. Chris Jones is one of the best defensive linemen in the league. And they have Patrick Mahomes. Now, I don't think they're going to have the same record they had in one-score games last year, but they've been to the last 3 Super Bowls and 5 out of the last 6. Yeah, they are the Super Bowl favorites this year, and I think they deserve to be the lone team in this tier, even though I think the Baltimore Ravens have a better roster on paper. It's just I can't bet against Patrick Mahomes from what we've seen in the past. Next up, we have everybody's favorite team kind of going into next year, the Denver Broncos. They made it to the playoffs last year, and they got blown out by the Buffalo Bills, but not a lot of people expected them to make the playoffs, and Bo Nix looked great. They had a weakness in the running game. They added RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins this offseason. They just recently extended Cortland Sutton. Everybody loves Pat Bryant coming into this season. Evan Ingram they picked up in the offseason. They have a solid O-line, and they have a Talanoa Hufanga. Brandon Jones is one of the more underrated secondary players in the NFL. Patrick Surtain, one of the best corners, the reigning defensive player of the year. You also have Nick Benito, who's an absolute stud. John Franklin Myers, Zach Allen, DJ Jones. This defense is amazing. And they also drafted Jahdae Barron, arguably the best corner in the 2025 draft class. I think they're a playoff team next year, and I don't think they can get in that AFC Championship game yet. They could definitely win a playoff game. I would be very shocked if they were in the AFC title game, and I do think they have a better roster than the Bengals, and maybe the Bengals just have a better wide receiver 1 and quarterback, and that's it. And you can also give the head coaching side to the Denver Broncos with Sean Payton. Next up, we have the Raiders. Now, the AFC West is going to be a very good division next year. The West in both conferences, pretty well balanced. Now, the Raiders added Geno Smith this offseason. Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly are running the show with the coaching staff. They drafted Ashton Jeanty in the top 10, who can be a top 5 running back next year for sure. The wide receiving core isn't terrible, right? Like, you have Jacoby Myers, you drafted Dante Thornton and Jack Best. You have Brock Bowers, who could be and maybe is the best tight end in the NFL. The offensive line has improved. The defense can have its question marks on the front 7 outside of Max Crosby. I think they're a potential wildcard team. I actually think this team is better than the Miami Dolphins right now, because I think Geno is at least a more reliable quarterback than Tua. I trust Pete Carroll than Mike McDaniel. I love Ashton Jeanty next year. I think the offensive line is a lot better in Vegas as well, but they are fairly close. And yeah, like I said, maybe I end up bumping up the Dolphins at the end of this as well. Next up, we have my Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, let me be super biased here and let me say that they are Super Bowl favorites. No, I think they're a potential wildcard team next year. I mean, we know that Mike Tomlin has never been under 500. They're probably going to get an upgrade in quarterback play from Russell Wilson last year to Aaron Rodgers this year. I think Aaron Rodgers has to be better than he was last year. And he wasn't a bottom 5 quarterback in the league. Now, he likes to avoid contact. Obviously, he's very old, but he's going to be at least a year more removed from that Achilles tear. He's going to have a solid wide receiver 1 in DK Metcalf. I'm excited about Caleb Johnson next year. They have 2 solid tight ends in Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith. I love the Steelers offensive line on paper with Broderick Jones, Troy Fautanu, Mason McCormick, Zach Frazier, and Isaac Seumalo. And this is still a really good defense. Is it old? Yes. Is it good? Also, yes. They re-signed TJ Watt. They picked up Jalen Ramsey, who's a lot better than Minka Fitzpatrick right now, in my opinion. You have one of the best front 7s in the game with Alex Highsmith, Peyton Wilson, Patrick Queen, Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, Keanu Benton, and first round pick Derek Harmon. I think the Steelers defense is great, and the offense got better than what it was last year. They were a team that was at the top of the AFC North before their gauntlet happened in December. I think they're probably the best team in this potential wild cards. Maybe I bump them up to playoff teams at the end of this, but I do think the AFC is so good. I think Aaron Rodgers will be fine for the Steelers this year, and I trust Arthur Smith. I just have no idea what Omar Khan's game plan was this offseason, right? You wait till the absolute end to get a quarterback. You trade Minka for Jonnu Smith and Jalen Ramsey. Where did that come from? You also traded away George Pickens to the Dallas Cowboys. You traded a second and extended DK Metcalf on a very large deal. So we'll see where they end up going this season, and they probably end up going 9-8 or 10-7. For the Buffalo Bills, can you upset the Chiefs? Last year we thought could have been the year they could finally beat the Chiefs. They had the MVP in Josh Allen. It looks like James Cook will at least play for them this year. They have the best receiving core maybe in Josh Allen's career in terms of depth there, in my opinion, in Buffalo with Josh Palmer, Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, and Curtis Samuel. Nobody like a Stephon Diggs, but a little bit more depth. And you also have two solid tight ends in Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox. It's a solid offensive line, and there's still some good players on the defensive side of the field. And Ed Oliver, they signed Joey Bosa, Gregory Rousseau. We'll see how consistent the secondary can be, but yeah, they have maybe the second best quarterback, third best quarterback on the planet. They were in the AFC Championship game last year, and I don't think they got much better or much worse this offseason. It's pretty much the same thing with the Ravens, right? Can they finally beat the Kansas City Chiefs, or is it going to be the same old story? Because Josh Allen has never beaten the Chiefs in the playoffs. For the Chargers, I think they are a playoff team as well. I love this Chargers team. They were a playoff team last year. Ladd McConkey was so much fun to watch. I love them drafting Trey Harris. They just recently extended Rashawn Slater. This offensive line is amazing with Rashawn Slater, Bradley Bozeman, Zion Johnson. Hopefully he's a little bit better at center. Mekhi Becton, who was great for the Eagles last year, and Joe Alt, who was a stud as a rookie. You have two fun running backs in Najee Harris and rookie Amarian Hampton. Justin Herbert could still be such a good quarterback in this league. I really like their secondary with Derwin James, Terheeb Still, and Dante Jackson. We'll see if Khalil Mack has a little bit left in the tank as well. And can they fill the void of losing Poona Ford in free agency? I love Jim Harbaugh as head coach. I do think, man, the AFC West is going to be very competitive. I do think they're going to get three teams again between the Chiefs, the Chargers, and the Broncos like they did last year. Next up, we have the New England Patriots, who were obviously maybe a big offseason winner, and they may double their win total from last year, which hopefully they can do. I love them getting Mike Vrabel and moving on from Gerard Mayo. I think Drake May showed so many flashes last year with a horrible offensive line and not a good receiving core. Now you bring in Kyle Williams, Stephon Diggs this offseason, you draft Trayvon Henderson, and you draft Will Campbell, which is going to be great for this team going forward. Cole Strange is a solid interior offensive lineman. You got just veterans, Garrett Bradbury, Mike Onwenu, Morgan Moses. I love them drafting Jared Wilson again. This defense is going to be improved. Christian Barmore looks ready to go. They signed Milton Williams. You got Robert Spillane, Harold Landry, some of the guys that have played with Mike Vrabel in the past. Hopefully Christian Gonzalez's injury isn't too serious, but they got a good secondary in Carlton Davis, Kyle Duggar, Jabril Peppers. I still don't think they make the playoffs, but honestly, like, I do think they're pretty close to the Miami Dolphins. I think the Dolphins are better, but I don't think they're far apart. Maybe I end up bumping down the Raiders here, but the Raiders should be a lot better next year as well, and they're not going to be picking around top 5, top 6 like they were last year. Next up, we have the Tennessee Titans. I mean, a team that had the number 1 pick. They selected Cam Ward, who's looked very good in camp so far. I still don't think this is going to be a team that's going to really compete whatsoever. Like, I at least think maybe New England could be 3-4 at one point. I don't think the Titans are going to be great at any point next year, at least record-wise. But I think all that matters is the development of Cam Ward. He's going to have 2 solid running backs in Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. Not the best receiving core in the world, but not the worst. We'll see how Calvin Ridley looks on this team. They've invested so much in the offensive line as of late. They paid Dan Moore a lot of money. We'll see how it works out. They've drafted Peter Skoronski and J.C. Latham in the first round, signed Kevin Zeitler and Lloyd Cushenberry. I think the defense is going to be maybe the worst unit in the NFL, but Jeffrey Simmons looks good. Maybe they trade him at one point this year. L'Jarius Sneed can't be much worse, but I just think the defense is going to be so bad, and they're not going to be able to stay in games, and they're probably going to be in number 1 pick contention. I think the Jets, I kind of want to put them in number 1 pick contention, but they also excite me next year. A new head coach in Aaron Glenn, Justin Fields at the helm, who hopefully should be healthy, ready to go. You got Breece Hall, who can't be much worse, or you also have Isaiah Davis and Breon Allen. You got a wide receiver 1 in Garrett Wilson, although it may be the worst receiving core in the league after him. I'm excited about Mason Taylor, their new rookie tight end. But this offensive line excites me a lot next year. I think the Chargers and maybe the Jets have the best offensive lines in the AFC, up there with the Kansas City Chiefs. Olu Fashanu, John Simpson, Joe Tippmann, Elijah Vera Tucker, and first-round pick Armand Membu. And they got good players on the defensive side of the field in Will McDonald, Sauce Gardner, Quinnen Williams. I just don't know if they're the most well-balanced team. We'll see if, hey, there's an injury or something to Garrett Wilson. Can they have any passing attack whatsoever? I think they'll be more competitive than Tennessee, but they're not going to make the playoffs next year. Next up, we have the Cleveland Browns, who didn't draft Travis Hunter. They traded down, got Mason Graham. They have so many quarterbacks right now. One of Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, is probably to get traded before the season starts. Is Dylan Gabriel going to play a game for them? Is Shedeur Sanders going to play a game for them? What's going on with Quinshon Judkins? I like the receiving core. I mean, it's Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, and Deontay Johnson. They still need like a true one, although Jerry Jeudy was good last year. I'm excited about Harold Fannin and David Njoku. The offensive line's got some good players. It's got some bad players. And the defense, I still feel like, is getting retooled. But you still have one of the best defensive players in the NFL in Myles Garrett. You got Denzel Ward. You got Grant Delpit. You got Greg Newsome. You got Mason Graham. They should be a lot more fun to watch this year. Although I don't know how far Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Gabriel, or Shedeur can take them. I still think they're going to be number one pick contention. But who knows? Maybe if they get the number one pick, they draft a good quarterback. This could be a very bright future team that they had at one point, and they mortgaged it for Deshaun Watson. Next up, we do have the Houston Texans, who I do think will still win the AFC South. There's a part of me that wants me to put them in the tier 2. And I mean, they beat the Chargers last year. They were somewhat competitive against the Chiefs in that game. Joe Mixon is hurt right now, but they signed Nick Chubb. We'll see how he looks for them. Year 3, CJ Stroud, he can't be much worse than he was in the regular season last year. Got a new offensive coordinator. They have a deep receiving core with Christian Kirk, Nico Collins, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, Dalton Schultz. The offensive line just scares me so much. I mean, I love the defense. I love the players they have with Will Anderson, Derek Stingley, Kalen Bullock, Kamari Lassiter, Jalen Pitre. I think maybe they're closer to Denver and the Chargers than they are to Buffalo or Baltimore. And if I put them here, I would really believe in a big year 3 breakout for CJ Stroud. But I do think Herbert's better than Stroud, but Stroud is better than Nix. I think they belong in this tier. I'm not ranking these teams within the tiers. Next up, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I'm very excited to watch. Hopefully it could be the best year of Trevor Lawrence's career now that he's got Liam Cohen. I mean, the Jaguars kind of excite me. Like, I want to put one of these teams in potential wildcards because some of these teams have better overall rosters than the Cincinnati Bengals. So I think I'm going to bump somebody up there. Like I said, I'm excited to watch Lawrence with Liam Cohen. I don't think Travis Etienne can be much worse. They drafted Bashal Tutin. Tank Bigsby had his moments last year. Brian Thomas Jr. was electric. We'll see what Travis Hunter is going to be. Is he going to play mostly corner? Will he do half and half? I like Brendan Strange. I think the offensive line got a little bit better this offseason, and they do have some good players on the defensive side of the field. Josh Hines Allen, Arik Armstead, Trayvon Walker, Foyesade Oluokun. And if Travis Hunter could be a legit corner 1 for them, this secondary could be much improved. I can't confidently say they're going to make the playoffs, but I may bump some of these teams up, honestly. I think I will at the end of this, because I got to figure out for the Colts if I want to put them in the number 1 pick contention or the missing playoff teams, because we don't know who their quarterback's going to be, at least at the moment I'm recording this. Is it going to be Anthony Richardson? Is it going to be Daniel Jones? Richardson excites me more, but Daniel Jones may be the higher floor option. They have a great running back in Jonathan Taylor. Hopefully it's a bounce back year for Michael Pittman. I like Josh Downs. I really like Tyler Warren as well. They lost Will Fries and Ryan Kelly this offseason, so we'll see how the replacements can go, but it's still a solid O-line. It's just the defense could be a little bit shaky, but they still invested a lot in this defense with Javarius Ward, Kenny Moore, Cameron Bynum, Kwity Paye with the first-round pick over the last few years, Grover Stewart, DeForest Buckner, Leatu Latu was their first-round pick in 2024. Zaire Franklin is still there, so I worry a little bit about the linebacker depth, but I don't think they're as bad as the Titans and Browns, although I do think they're the worst team maybe in this tier. It's probably them or the Jets, and I think I'm gonna have the Colts and missing playoff teams. I do think they're a lot better than the Browns and the Titans, at least right now. So out of all these teams here, I think I may bump up. Who do I want to bump up in this tier to the potential wild cards? Because I do feel like Chiefs got to be in their own tier. We know the Bills and the Ravens are right there. There could be elite for the Chargers, Texans, and Broncos. I think I'm going to be kind of nice, and I'm going to put the Dolphins, the Jags, and the Raiders here with the Jets, the Patriots, and the Colts. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs next year. And then number 1 pick contention, yeah, with the Titans and the Browns. So I hope you guys did enjoy that AFC team tier list. If you did, I would appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments what you agree with, what you disagree with. I'm sure there's going to be something you disagree with if I had your team too low. Hit that subscribe button for more NFL content all offseason long and into the NFL season as well. I'm glad to be uploading once again consistently on this channel. I'll catch you guys in the next one.